Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, March 25th. The LA Galaxy get a 3-2 victory, down 2-0 with less than 20 minutes to play. The Galaxy score 3 goals in the span of 498 seconds. That's, I'm sure, what we're going to be talking about tonight. Talk about that come-from-behind win, talk about the players that made it happen, and what that first half felt and looked like as well. We have some interesting news to share with you on a couple different fronts along the LA Galaxy. One of them involves a live show with yours truly. Get ready. We've got a date for you. We got a time. You're going to want to be there. Other than that, we got a lot to get to, some notes, some stats, all that fun stuff. And to help me do all of it, we're glad to have him back. It's Kevin, the Panda, Baxter. Kev, how you doing, bud?
Hey, welcome to show 1102.
Yeah, you're right. Congratulations. You remembered. I was going to say, no, you're way off. No, you're exactly right. But eventually I have to squeeze in another show so that way you're not on evens anymore and you're on odds. We'll get back. We'll be right with the world again, I promise.
By the way, why am I even here? I'm a basketball writer now.
That's what I heard. You were out Clippers. I think you're going to do some hockey too. So
Well, I had the Clippers on Saturday. Had absolutely not even the slightest idea what was going on.
I told you shouldn't tell people that. Like, that's not something I think I would share with everybody.
And I have the Clippers a game in Phoenix next month. And then after that, then I pick up the Kings for the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs.
Ooh, exciting! So
hockey. It's all kind of related to soccer. There is an object that you try to put in the goal.
Hockey is very much, I think, like the closest you can get to soccer without it actually being soccer. So I guess they're adjacent. Are they? I don't know. It almost feels like it's a niche sport, like a niche sport, like on both sides, right? You have soccer, you have hockey. Like, I don't know.
And making the transition, it is kind of difficult, believe it or not. I keep calling, in hockey, they're defensemen. In soccer, they're defenders. I mess that up all the time. So when I'm covering hockey, I definitely am going to call those guys defenders.
Right.
And then when I come back to soccer again, there's going to be a lot of guys playing on the back line who are defensemen.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. By the way, Lasso's Optimism starts us off with a $10 super chat. Appreciate that. Evening, gents. Gotta love the never say die in the boys. Still a wee bit to go on them set pieces, but you can't say boring. Love me some Brugman and the sweet taste of what's in store. Go G's. Yeah, I don't know. First of all, Thursday night was a crazy night because my wife was out of town, and so my son was making his appearance on Corner of the Galaxy at a near constant every 5 minutes. Tonight should be a little bit more calm. I don't expect him to come in anymore, but that doesn't mean that Kevin won't act up, and we'll have to make him stand behind a fan in the corner. So I apologize if that upsets anybody's viewing. I would also like to say I was never mad at him. I knew that was a possibility, and so people were like, "Oh, you don't need to be mad at your son." I was never mad at him. He's 4. I don't get mad at him for stuff like that. He just wanted to hang out and see what was going on. So, a podcaster in the making for sure. But
yeah, you're good at understanding him. When he comes in and talks, I have trouble maybe it's, I don't know whether it's the microphone or
No.
I have trouble understanding what he's saying.
He has a speech impediment, so
Oh,
he
okay.
actually has like a tongue tie. Yeah. So
There I am. Way to step in it again, Panda.
It's
Good job.
fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. He's actually working on. We have to take him to classes in order to get it up. He does all sorts of like cool exercises, and then my wife and I have to do them. And then because his tongue is tied and it can't move a whole bunch, it's about stretching that muscle and doing this stuff. Well, then we do them, and then my cheeks are sore and stuff because you have to some of them is holding your breath, you blow air into both your cheeks, and then you move it over to one cheek, and then you do. It's crazy. It's exhausting. So my mouth is getting stronger as a result of his little impediment that he has. But he's a pretty happy dude. So I don't feel like you're stepping on any toes. He's good to go. So. But yeah, I have to translate a lot for him. That's why we're trying to get it taken care of, because that way he doesn't need us to say everything he's got. So, but he never shuts up either. So I wonder where he gets that from. My wife, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's start with a little bit of let's see. Do I want? Yeah, I think so. Let's start with a little bit of breaking news.
We have really stepped up.
I'm just going to use that for non-breaking news stuff from here on out because I just like to play it. A little bit of breaking news. Live show stuff. Let's get you some information on live show. Kevin, you don't even know this. I mean, I've been sort of going about, but I have all of the information locked in.
On a need to know basis.
It is, and you don't need to know. The Corner of the Galaxy will be at Dignity Health Sports Park on April 6th. Now, the LA Galaxy will go to BMO Field. Is it BMO Field Stadium? Whatever. Yeah. Who cares? BMO Stadium.
It's also called BMO, by the way.
Whatever.
BMO.
Sure. Whatever. Keep making stuff up. Headed over to BMO Stadium in order to take on LAFC. This is the first El Traffico. It's on April 6th. All right. Now, the LA Galaxy are hosting a watch party at Dignity Health Sports Park. And that means Galaxy Park will be opened up and there will be lots of stuff sort of going on. They've asked us if we would be kind enough to do a pregame show. So we will be doing a pregame podcast basically before the kickoff. So if you have no place to go and you're looking for a watch party, I suggest Dignity Health Sports Park. For this particular game, I'm going to be there. Mr. Kevin Ryder of Kevin and Bean and Kevin and Sluggo now is going to be one of our special guests there that day. He's all gung-ho about it, ready to go. So as long as nothing changes there. No, Kevin, this is the other Kevin, not you, Kevin. Kevin, your car can't break down this time. All right, so we will have him there, and he's going to be there for us. So I implore you, it's free. Parking, I think, is free as well. So come to the stadium, watch the game, watch El Traffico if you're not going to the game, right? And then you get to get a free pregame show. And my wonderful co-host in this particular case is reporter extraordinaire, not you because you're a basketball writer, but this other guy, Mr. Alex Ruiz, is going to be our co-host on that day. And maybe we'll have another special guest as well. So that is the big news for our live show. So we hope to see you there. We hope that you'll join us. We are going to basically do an hour-long show that gets you right up to kickoff. We're probably going to start around 3:30. That's when gates sort of open. So as soon as everybody files in, we'll start rocking and rolling. And then we want to sort of be done by 4:30-ish in there because TV start time is at 4:30. Expect that the usual 10-minute lead-in that we normally get on games is going to be extended in this particular case for the El Terrifico, as the chat room was saying. Mr. Jim Hill called it El Terrifico, and that's also a great name too. So we'll go with that.
This will be the first El Terrifico I've missed. I think I'm the only writer. I'm one of the few people that have seen every El Terrifico. I even saw the one in Lake Buena Vista. Remember MLS's back tournament. There's probably a few team administrators, people like that have seen. I know none of the PR staff. No one there has seen every one of the games, but I have to miss this one. I will actually be in Canada that day.
That's called Canada.
Canada.
Yes.
I'll be in Canada. I'll be up north in the Great White North. And so I'm going to miss that for the first time. And I thought about, do I really want to miss this and break the streak? And I thought, well, the streak's going to have to end at some point. So
Don't tell the real story. Mrs. Panda said that if you don't miss this particular game, that would be fine. You could go to El Traffico and keep your streak alive. However, you would no longer have a place to sleep.
yeah, that's right. The locks will be changed when you get home.
That's right. So no, that's good. Let me get to some other super chats in here, but I hope everybody will join us at Dignity Health Sports Park for that watch party, which should be a lot of fun. $2 super chat from Adam. Thank you, Adam. Your 20th super chat, Adam. Huge. Awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Any thoughts on why Seattle is doing bad? Everybody's injured. I think they're actually injured. Yeah, I think there's six starters are injured, and I think they're starting to get some guys back. So we'll see what happens whenever they face the Galaxy coming up this weekend on the 30th. Aaron, $5 super chat. Aaron says, season ticket numbers. My rep told me today that there are 8,000 season ticket members, a near record. Can't imagine that's accurate or that he is allowed to say so. So there you go. I learned a long time ago.
Sounds about right.
I mean,
the figure sounds about right.
Yeah, but we've always argued that, like, you know, whenever it was really bad, they were like at 7,000 or 6,800 or, you know, something like that in that range. And then, you know, we've been told, oh no, it's 9,500. It's never. I don't think it's ever been close to 10,000. Just letting you know. All right. From all the numbers I've seen, I don't think it's ever been close to 10,000 season ticket holders.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because, you know, Angel City and LAFC both say they're over 16,000. Okay.
Right.
So are they really double the Galaxy, who have been here much longer and have the history? And if they are, great, it's good for them. And I just wonder why the Galaxy are lagging. But on the other hand, if the Galaxy season ticket base is only 8,000, 9,000, they got 25. Are they, you know, they're selling 14,000 single game tickets, you know, 25, 26, what are, you know, or 14, 15,000, whatever. That's really good.
I've always assumed that the LA Galaxy's walk-ups were significant, right? And listen, there's lots of people who don't like season tickets and they have packages, and other packages fall into, I believe, not season ticket member numbers. And so you can sell a whole bunch of other packages that would also include that. But if you look at what happened with the LA Galaxy's last home game whenever they played against St. Louis, right? And you watch that game, a crazy game. But I was told earlier in the week that it was 23,000, and they ended up getting 25, you know, 164 or whatever it is, which is the sellout number, right? So there was enough walk-ups, even season tickets, and then what they saw at the beginning of the week to, and then extend that into the sort of the 25,000 number. So, the walk-ups are a significant part of the LA Galaxy. I think they've always been. And I think that the 8,000 is not an unreasonable number. I would think that possibly the Galaxy at one point topped off around 9,000, and I don't think it's ever been higher than that. Although I was told that it was much higher than that, just couldn't confirm any numbers. It's like we always joke about it, and this isn't so much a knock. It is a knock on the Galaxy, but it's a knock on all sports teams, Kevin, which is, you know exactly how many season ticket members there are. Like, exactly how many you have. And if you don't, people should be fired. Okay, because, like, you know, I'm sure every morning somebody runs a report and says we have this many season ticket members, you know, like that. So you could just share that number and then people wouldn't be guessing all the time. But pretend. But it's better if it's shrouded in mystery and, you know, fog.
Yeah, that
and
way
smoke.
people can't hammer you for it. But to step back for a second, think about LAFC has supposedly sold out every non-COVID game they played. It's 22,000 plus. The Galaxy average attendance has been higher than them, I think, every year.
I think so.
Angel City, it leads the NWSL in attendance since they came into the league. That's phenomenal. Dodgers average over 3.5 million a season. They led Major League Baseball, I think, the last 6-7 years. The Angels average in the high 30s. The Chargers and Rams sell out or come close to selling out most games. The Ducks and Kings both have long sellout streaks. And the Clippers and Lakers, as I can attest, being an NBA writer, they do really well too. It's phenomenal. And I know that there are more teams in this market, and it's a big city, a big metropolitan area. I get it. But you know what? You look at the teams in New York, where they have about the same number of teams. They don't do nearly as well. There are just some really loyal sports fans in Southern California.
And I also think maybe it's not even, and I'm not trying to knock it, but maybe it's not even the loyalty stuff, is that it's just that there's a lot of people, like, there's always a place to go. Like, you could always fill a seat somewhere, right? I mean, look at Lakers, and obviously that's a ticket that's always difficult to get. It doesn't matter what's happening, right? The Kings can be difficult. Ducks can be difficult. Angels, you can always get a ticket. Dodgers, for the most part, you can usually get a ticket unless it's the really big games. And then you have to pay a lot of money, right? But that type of thing, it's like a lot like the Lakers. You can usually find tickets, but they're just going to cost you a lot of money. You see these things. And for me, it's just like, there's a culture in Los Angeles that maybe it's not as diehard as like Green Bay with the Packers, right? Which is like, oh, I don't care if it's snow, I don't care if it's rain, I'm going to be there, that type of thing. By the way, I apologize for a not even close Wisconsin accent whenever I try to do that. I don't want people like knocking me. That wasn't a thing.
Pepper's only game in town, though. I mean,
it is. And it makes sense. I get that. But what I'm saying is that it's very much in the culture of Southern California. It's like, hey, you want to go to a game this weekend? Cool, let's pick up some tickets. That is absolutely a thing in Los Angeles and always has been as far as I'm concerned. So anyway.
And sometimes if you want to go to the game this weekend and the response is, what sport?
Yeah, exactly.
Hockey, basketball, soccer.
You can see multiples. $10 super chat from Michael. Do you know if there are watch parties at the official bar partners anymore? I live in downtown LA and used to like watching games at the Beer Garden and Aero Lodge Brewing and Arts District. Go Galaxy. There is a list on the LA Galaxy website and they've been publishing those lists as well. So go check and see where that is. I would suggest for April 6th at 3:30. In the afternoon, you perhaps want to go to the watch party at Dignity Health Sports Park this particular time. Galaxy Park will be open. They got a DJ going. I know a podcast that might do a live show there. So it sounds like a good time. So if you're looking for one, that's where it is.
How about concessions?
Yeah, concessions. I believe that there's going to be all sorts of stuff there. I'm actually waiting for like the official list. I had to get special permission to talk about it tonight so I could start doing it. I just don't know what everything else is. I know where I'm going to be and how I'm going to be doing stuff. So it's going to be a lot of one. Let's see. $20 super chat from Kyle. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that. Josh, can you let me know why some away games have press conferences available on YouTube right away and some don't get posted for many hours after the game? Thanks. Keep it up. Has mostly to do with when the LA Galaxy travel and when they can upload that stuff. Because for the most part, I believe they're in charge of uploading that. A lot of times, this is behind the scenes a little bit. I don't think it's magical by any means. But on Saturday night, it was a long time waiting for Greg Vanney to come in. They were rightfully amped up. If you saw the picture after the game and everything, I think there was a lot of talk after that game where it was sort of like, we told you. It was very much digging into the belief that this team is sort of special in some things. And so we got to talk to Greg Vanney, and then we had to wait for a little while to talk to Dejan Joveljic. He came in and talked for a little bit. Then Ricky Puig came in and then talked. And then we were supposed to get Mark Delgado as well, but they were like, we have to leave. And so there was no chance that they got they had the chance to upload things. You can't upload it from the airplane. There's no chance they had a chance to upload it until they got back and landed and did all that stuff. So I imagine that some of that is just delay and stuff whenever it goes. So it's one of those. And it's just my take. But it's always interesting. I think, Kevin, you and I are a little critical sometimes. We're like, it's your airplane. You can wait to talk and then you can go whenever you want. But there are flight plans that they file and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's not quite their airplane because they charter, which a lot of teams do in professional sports. But some teams have like their own plane and their own pilots. And then it's a little more under control. But you have to worry about duty days for pilots and stuff like that. It's a whole big thing. So it's just interesting to see. So that's what I got. Yes.
Send your complaints to Kevin Acevedo at the Galaxy. He's the one in charge of uploading that.
Does he actually do it, or is it a video person?
I think so.
Yeah. That was one of the things that goes on there. It's always interesting. We sign on right after the game is over. So the game is over. I usually have a little bit of time. I had my son with me on Saturday night. He was actually playing in the background. He was enjoying the fact it was taking the LA Galaxy a little while to get everybody through, because that means that he got to stay up late. So he was having a grand old time playing in the background while we did it. But then we go through and we generally understand like sort of what the timeline is. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes shorter. We're pretty much just at the mercy, and we hang out on the Zoom call and chat with each other and wait for players to come in, and then players come in. Can I say special shout out, all right, to two people. And then we'll talk about this game. One is Mark Delgado. I know everybody thinks I'm a Mark Delgado fanboy, and I am. I think what he does is amazing. But finally got on Team of the Week, and we'll talk about that and the whole deal. But Mark Delgado finally getting on the Team of the Week with his performance and the game-winning goal and all that fun stuff. So shout out to Mark Delgado breaking the disrespect from Major League Soccer for the first 5 games or 4 games, and makes it on the 5th. So that was one thing. And then huge shout out. And I want to celebrate this because I want him to know, and you guys should let him know, that Ricky Puig answered a question in English on the press conference. And by the way, so it was funny because Vicky, who's in charge of PR for the LA Galaxy, was saying, okay, Ricky will take questions in Spanish, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm out because my Spanish is no bueno. So I let that go. I'm like, cool, but I can usually understand what they're saying, and I can sort of like take little keys away. So I was doing that, and then there was somebody in the room who had a question, because remember, they're in Sporting Kansas City. You can be in the press conference room and wait, and then you could talk to them, right? The whole deal. So we went through our Zoom questions and got everybody, and then there was somebody in the room. He's like, oh, well, I don't speak Spanish. And Vicky's like, it's okay, ask it in English. He understands. And then so he asked his question. The reporter asked his question, and then Ricky goes, I'll answer it in English. And we all went, like, everybody I was like, oh, really? We're doing this. And so we all paid. Great answer, good stuff, perfectly solid. As we know, he's a very good English speaker. I know he's a little nervous about it. Yes.
Did you see there was some social media stuff with him at the last season ticket holders event where they came out to watch training? It was last week, and he went through, and he was talking to a kid, and the kid's parents was there, and the whole conversation was in English. The kid spoke to him in English. He answered in English. The parents spoke to him in English. Everything was fine, and it wasn't pidgin English. It wasn't like he didn't understand the question. It was all fine.
He knows it. So anyway, so he gave his answer, and in order to encourage him, I got off. I unmuted myself on the chat afterwards, and we were like, "Bravo, Ricky, good job! Like, that was it. You need that encouragement. You did it. That was it." So I'm hoping, one, he makes an appearance on this podcast, and two, that he starts answering some questions in English. And listen, he doesn't need to. We can certainly do the translation thing and that type of fun. It's just, I think I lose some of his personality in his Spanish responses because I have to get them translated, and a lot of times that's not like word for word translation, right? So you're missing like the finer points of things for me, and that's just for me. He doesn't need to speak English. I'm not trying to force him, but I just wanted to shout out the fact that he did it and it was awesome. And that he should be encouraged to do it more because he seems comfortable.
And you're right about the translation, because like you go to like a FIFA World Cup or something where people speak in multiple languages, and there's an app that that FIFA puts on your phone, and they give you these are actually FIFA headphones, and you listen to the translation, and it's so stilted that you can see the guy laughing up there, and then the translation is not funny at all. It's just stilted. The words they use to describe different players is, they might use a slang word in Brazil, in Portuguese, a Brazilian player, and it comes out translated differently.
Right.
You really have to be careful using those quotes because it's not really what the player said, and certainly the flavor doesn't come through at all. So you're right.
Right. Well, I just hope that Ricky feels comfortable and knows that I think certainly our press corps is sort of rooting for him to do more English because I think we'd have a lot of fun interactions with him. So anyway, so that's something. $6 super chat from Juan. Here's $1 for every goal Dejan will have after the next game. I'll keep this going until it ends. Oh, if it ends. I like this. We're benefiting from Dejan scoring goals. We should tell him that I get $1 every time he scores a goal. And then it keeps multiplying. So every time. So I like that. So you ready to talk about the game? Let's talk about the game.
They had a game?
Yeah, I guess. 22 minutes into the podcast, we should probably talk about the game. The LA Galaxy 3-2 winners over Sporting Kansas City. Your lineups, Gabriel Peck was the first time he started for the LA Galaxy, but up top it was Peck, Yovelich, and Paetzel. You had Ricky, Cerrillo, and Mark Delgado. You had Aude, Yoshida, Zavaleta filling in for the red-carded Cáceres. And then Mickey Yamane over on the right-hand side, and then John McCarthy in goal. The LA Galaxy playing the worst 45 minutes I have seen them play this entire season. I did enjoy the panic of LA Galaxy fans who clearly have PTSD from all the seasons of yore. There was bedlam at halftime, Kevin. And really, I think what you saw was, and Greg Vanney sort of talked about it afterwards. He's like, a lot of times we have to find our rhythm. He goes, when we find our rhythm and sort of find where our depth is and how we're supposed to do things, he goes, we're really good. He goes, when we don't, it's really bad, right? And it's sort of like, oh yeah, it was really bad. The Galaxy at no point in that first half looked really dangerous. They didn't generate a lot of chances. In fact, they generated almost no chances in that first half. You saw a team that struggled to connect. You saw a team that struggled to handle Sporting Kansas City's press. And the further Ricky Puig dropped back to get the ball, the quicker that press came on. St. Louis did it. Sporting Kansas City did it. It's clearly the game plan to uproot Ricky Puig is to attack him in his own defensive third as he's trying to get the ball to sort of break through, because if you get a chance to uproot him, and he is a player who will spill the ball, Kevin. We've seen it multiple times now. But he is a player that spills the ball. And when you spill the ball, you can take advantage of that because a lot of times the defenders are already sort of set in their offensive set, not their defensive set. And then Ricky turns the ball over and it goes the other way. So through 45 minutes, if you saw the game ratings, and somebody even tweeted them out, but the game ratings at 45 minutes was atrocious for the LA Galaxy. There wasn't a single player that was doing anything in that game that even remotely looked like they were going to be competitive for it.
You know what my thought was at that point was we had, first of all, the sort of Kansas City curse. The Galaxy just plays so horribly when they go to Kansas City.
They do.
And Greg Vanney has even worse record than the Galaxy in Kansas City. So my thought was this is just, history repeating itself. This is what's supposed to happen when they go to Kansas City. And my other thought was we had talked on the pod earlier about I want to see the Galaxy, their reaction after they finally lose a game. Do they bounce back? And that was my thought. Well, okay, this is the week where we're going to find out between Kansas City and Seattle. Are the Galaxy going to be able to come back? I didn't have to wait another 45. It happened in the next 45 minutes.
Yeah,
they did come back.
Well, and that was sort of my thing is let's give Greg Vanney has been under a lot of pressure in these first 3 years, right? And so now into the fourth year. There's a lot of stuff that you've seen from Greg Vanney where we've said, hey, he needs to do better in this and better in that. And there's been a lot of criticisms, I think, of his coaching. One of the things, though, Kevin, that he has been good at, I think, watching even over all the years, is adjustments in the second half. The LA Galaxy have always been, under Greg Vanney, a better second half team. Like, what happened in the first half we can fix. Let's try this in the second half and let's fix things, right? And I think that at any point with this LA Galaxy team, you need to run that through sort of the like the sieve, right? You're going to pour everything into this thing and you're going to try to make this soup. You have to understand that the ingredient you're putting in for the LA Galaxy is the ability for them to score goals in the second half, to adjust to the opponent in the second half and be more dangerous in the second half. Now, what did we actually see in the second half was that the LA Galaxy came out very much like the first half. Now, Dejan Joveljic scored an offside goal. In fact, he scored 2 offside goals. And so Dejan comes out, and I think in the 52nd minute was when that first one was scored. He scored. He was offside. It was a header. It was off of a corner kick, and you're like, oh, the Galaxy are going to get back on the set pieces, mostly because they're down 2-0 on set pieces. The Galaxy now have given up 5 set-piece goals. Now, in total, Kevin, they've given up 9 goals. So more than half of their goals have come from...
That's right. More than half.
More than half. That's right. There's more than half of their goals that they have allowed so far. The 9 goals that they have allowed have come off of set pieces. Huge problem. Needs to be fixed. I don't know that Zavaleta being in there was a problem on this particular night. As a matter of fact, I think Zavaleta had a very good night. I know lots of people were worried about that. I think some of y'all, again, the PTSD is real. But Eriq Zavaleta comes in on a regular basis and usually does just fine. He's not going to have an outstanding game. He's not going to have a horrible game. He does eventually get a goal that leads the LA Galaxy towards their comeback, right? But you see the 2 set-piece goals that they've given up, and it's just like, this has to get fixed. I don't know how it needs to be fixed. I don't know if you need a more aggressive John McCarthy. I don't know if you need a more aggressive defense. I don't know if how they're setting up is wrong, but whatever it is, this is the big red alarm right now for the LA Galaxy. If they take care of the set-piece goals, Kevin, just the set-piece goals, they'd have one of the best defenses in Major League Soccer, having only allowed 4 goals through 5 games.
And their goal differential is second best in the league at +3, +4. It leads the league. You talked about John McCarthy, and I wanted to mention Gabriel Peck too. He starts for the first time, and they have their worst half of the season.
Yes,
and Fagundes has played so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say it's all Gabriel Peck's fault, but maybe there was a chemistry problem. Maybe we need to get through this sort of feeling out process. I don't know that there's necessarily a coincidence between the worst half of the season and Gabriel Peck's first start.
I see, and I'll go further. I think there was. I think there certainly was. And I think with Fagundes, you get more of a balanced sort of attack. And Fagundes is very smart with positioning, and he's very good on defense. I sort of asked Greg, I go, it was Peck's first start. And, what did you think? It seemed maybe he caused you guys a little problems on defense in terms of what he's trying to do. And Greg talked about his positioning being out too wide sometimes, and therefore not being involved in the plays, and then not being able, maybe he was too worried about the right back for Sporting Kansas City in these particular cases, right? He plays on the left wing, so worried about the right back as he's coming forward. He was like, maybe he was too worried about that. He goes, we need to make some adjustments and need to get it. He goes, but as you saw in the second half, he was able to come inside a little bit more, and that led to more chances for him. And if you look in the game-winning goal, it's Gabriel Peck, who should really get an assist. He's not going to, because Tim Melia, the SKC goalkeeper, technically gets a finger on it. How does that make any sense, by the way? How do you not get an assist whenever, like, clearly that's a shot cross? I'm not sure if it goes in if Melia doesn't tip it, but he just barely gets the tiniest little finger on it, and now Delgado knocks it in, and it's unassisted because Tim Melia didn't even really move the ball enough to have it switch, directions in this. But I digress. I'm not gonna sit there and argue assist too much. But what I'm saying is that Gabriel Peck ended up, I think, fitting in a little bit better, and we have to get to the reason why all of this sort of turned around. But you get the Yovelich offside goal that didn't count. You get Yovelich, you get Zavaleta's goal that then goes in on that set piece and the ball bouncing around and being crazy, and Zavaleta knocks it in. So Eriq Zavaleta, the guy who everybody was worried about filling in for Caceres, Kevin, comes in and
starts the comeback,
gets it going. Dejan Joveljic said at halftime, I said, what was that? Was there an idea that you guys could just come back? Like, did you guys think you were out of it? And he goes, I said at halftime, we get one goal and we're back in this. And it was 2-0 at that point. It's a reasonable take to sort of have. But he said he couldn't put his finger on what was different last year than this year, but there's this belief, there's this something's different in the mentality and what they're doing and how they're approaching things, that they all knew that if they got one goal, that they were, not only were they going to tie that game, but they were probably going to win it. Yovelich gets the second goal that ends up tying the game, and it's a replay of a goal that he got called offside on earlier in that, about 2 minutes earlier in this whole play. So to me, Kevin, that's crazy. So Yovelich gets called offside on a ball from Ricky Puig. Ricky down the middle, Puig out, Ricky out to Yovelich. Yovelich offside, he scores. Cool. Definitely offside. Not a problem. Then they go back 2 minutes later. They go back to the exact same play. This time, Yovelich warps his body. I think it was the best goal that Dejan scored this year. But he warps his body in this way to sort of allow for the passing legs. Greg Vanney talked about it afterwards, said, I want more angles for Dejan. I want more angles because when you run with angles, you tell Ricky where you want the ball. Yovelich said it was an easy goal, Kevin, and the reason it was easy is because the ball was perfect. Right? He goes, it's easy to score when the ball is perfect, right? So that's
Let's go back to what Ricky or what Dejan supposedly said at halftime. One more goal to get back in this. They were outshot in the game. I don't have the halftime statistics. They were outshot on the game 26-12.
Yes.
Shots on goal 9-7. Kansas City. They dominated every which way, especially in that first half. And so you talk about how things have changed. This is clearly a game that in the last couple of years, it's like they fold the tents and just go home. Maybe it winds up 5-6-0.
Right.
But certainly they don't come back.
No.
They were dominated. They weren't even in the game in the first half.
Correct.
So for Dejan to go into the locker room and say, yeah, we got one more goal, we get back in this, it would have been hard for a lot of players to believe that. But I'm sure that this season they did. But it sounds like it's like an easy statement. Yes, it's 2-0. If you get a goal, it's 2-1. But the way that they were being pushed around, it almost didn't seem reasonable to think that they could get back in the game at all.
And shame on us, by the way. We didn't really talk about the major catalyst in all of this happening, which was Gaston Brugman coming into the game. Brugman comes on for Cerrillo. The Galaxy have had Ricky Puig sort of playing more deeper than probably that they've wanted him to do. Brugman comes in. Ricky even said afterwards, he says, whenever Gaston comes in, I don't have to go back to get the ball as much and do that. And he goes, so I get to stay high and play higher. So there you have Ricky Puig playing in the half space between the defense, that defensive back line and sort of the midfielders. He gets a ball from Brugman in this particular case and is able to thread it into Yovelich. Yovelich scores. Now it's 2-2. Yovelich says, look, go back and watch that. He goes, I think only one guy celebrated with me. You know why? Because we weren't done. We knew that we were going to score another goal. He goes, it wasn't about being 2-2. We wanted it to be 3-2, right? And if you go back and watch, I think there's a small little celebration and everybody's but they get back and they're like, okay, we're going. In the span of a little over 8 minutes, I think it's 8 minutes and 14 seconds is when all of these goals happen. And you get the final one, which is DP Central. This is the Killer Peas, as they like to say. This is Puig. This is Paintsil. This is Peck. And then eventually it gets to the back post with Delgado, who puts it away, right? But you got your designated players all playing at the same time in a game where it was on the line. A game that you were down 2-0 in the span of, again, 498 seconds, you're able to turn it around. Puig inside to Paintsel across the top, Paintsel out to Peck. Peck, I thought, took one too many dribbles. I was like, he needed to take the shot then, or he needed to take the cross then. Whatever it was, I thought it was one too many. He puts a ball towards the back post that's very dangerous. Melia gets the tiniest finger on it, and Delgado knocks it into the back. Now, it's initially called offside, Kevin. And then it was funny watching the broadcast because I'm like, man, I can't believe they were offside again. And that would have been the game winner. I felt like that would have killed them if it didn't go in, right? If it didn't count, having another offside goal. The Galaxy put the ball in the back of the net 5 times on the night. 3 of them counted, right? And so you're seeing this Galaxy team sort of build up into these dangerous areas and be really good. And then to see Delgado be able to knock it into the back and get there. You watch the replay. Good God, he's onside by a good yard. It's not even close. So I was not a fan of how this game was refereed. I thought it was refereed very similar to the St. Louis game, which was SKC was able to take chances, foul people without getting punished, and then continue to do it and continue to foul and continue to nit and pick and do all of these things. And the referees were letting it go, right?
Well, here's the good news.
Yes.
Rumor has it that right now, as we speak, Monday night, the referees union, the members are voting on a new tentative agreement. We could have real referees, perhaps as early as next weekend.
And that we'll see. Now, if it goes, remember they had an agreement before, and then it got voted down by like 98%. So I'm wondering what's going on, and it could very well be that that MLS and Pro, who's doing the negotiations with the PSRA, maybe Pro is like, you have to take this in members. Like, this is your best shot at it. Take it to your members. I don't know. Apparently it's for 7 years, what takes them through, the Olympics and the World Cup and all that stuff.
That's the problem. That's the thing they don't like. But as you know, I wrote about this, I guess, was it last week?
Yes.
Gosh.
Yes.
Now, as a basketball writer, things go so much faster now.
Right.
But the difference apparently is, as the union broke it down for me, is about $94,000. I think it's $94,007 a club for the 29 clubs. If each club put in $94,000 into the kitty, then they would close the gap between what MLS and Pro is offering and what the union's asking for. They would close that gap.
Right.
Seems like a bargain when you look at the way games have been decided. A couple of teams, Kansas City being one, when they lost, was it Kansas City that played Philadelphia? And the Galaxy lost at least 4 points, you could argue, because of bad referees. Yeah. So if you're the Galaxy or you're Kansas City or you're some of these teams that have been, maybe it was Salt Lake, some of these teams have been burned by referee decisions, it's probably worth $94,000 to get the real referees back.
Yep, absolutely. It's supposed to, the voting is supposed to end at midnight on the East Coast. So Field of Berm says voting ends at 9 p.m. our time as we're going. So we'll see. Hopefully there's an announcement rather quickly. I don't think they're going to wait till tomorrow, right? I mean, I would imagine that right after our show, there's going to be something where they're like, this passed or this didn't, that type of thing.
You know what's interesting though? As you know, a little inside baseball, MLS beat me up so badly over that column. I spent the entire day fielding calls from MLS about how many things I got wrong. And guess what? None. None of it was wrong. It was vetted very carefully by a lot of different people. It wasn't wrong, but it cast the league in a bad light. It cast the league as being cheap. It cast the league as not really caring about the officiating and trying to pass off bad officials, to the fans. And I thought all that was wrong. Anyway, they beat me up all over it, and now a week later they come to an agreement. I guess I'll take credit for that.
I was going to say it was all you. I texted you that, and I was like, "Hey, I go. They should thank you. Apparently, you got it done." So something to watch there. But no, just watching how this Galaxy team came in and was able to come back, and Delgado getting the goal, and Delgado rightfully on the man of the match day, chart there. So we look at this LA Galaxy team and we say, what does this mean? One is the defense thing is absolutely a problem, Kevin. Has to be fixed. There was a question in here. Let me get to the super chats because I want to make sure. Ben has 2 of them. One is Ben gives us a $10 super chat. He goes, "Is there any truth to the rumor that we are trying to acquire another center back? That the Galaxy are trying to acquire another center back?" I have heard that milled around. I have not dug into it yet. It's not really time for me to dig into it yet. I imagine that that's not going to happen right away. I could be wrong, and whenever I get the chance to talk to somebody, I will. and sort of see where everything is. But I have heard that as well. So Ben, you're not off, and I think that that's still something that possibly they're looking at. One, because of the slow return of Jalen Neal, I think has sort of mandated it. Two, they got rid of Mavinga at the beginning of the year, and that was a more or less expensive contract, and they could backfill that with a lesser expensive contract, that type of thing. You had Sega Coulibaly, who was part of this team, is no longer part of the team. So it's an area of, I wouldn't say concern, because you should have Neal back here pretty soon. But right now it's Zavaleta really backing up, the two spots with Yoshida and Cáceres.
Let's talk about that for just a second, because Zavaleta, remember, turned down the call-up from the Salvador national team. He winds up scoring the goal that starts the comeback. They would have been in a real world of hurt without Zavaleta there, if he had gone away or whatever. I mean, they're pretty thin there, and I think if they do go out and get another center back, look at the kind of center back it is. Is it another fill-in kind of a guy? Is it a guy on a lower sort of tier contract that can soak up some minutes if he's needed, or is it more of a kind of a Yoshida type guy?
Right.
And the reason I say that is that'll tell us where Jalen Neal is, because if you're expecting Jalen Neal back this spring, that's like making a trade for he is a national team player. You're making a trade. You're adding a national team player. All of a sudden, your depth goes out the window. It's amazing. You have 3 starters for 2 positions. If he's not going to be back, and they know that, they might go out and get a quality center back, at least on a short-term contract, to get them through the season.
Tam, one of those, I still think the Galaxy are going to add a big name here at some point. And I know people are like, no, that's not what Will has said that if you're going to get those big names, you're looking at them on the lower contracts, not as designated players, but as a lower contracts. Galaxy still have a U22 spot. I believe they still have a Max Tam. Wouldn't be surprised if a Max Tam comes in as maybe a second striker. Although I think Miguel Berry has done serviceable for what he has been asked to do, but you want to see him sort of put the ball in the back of the net too. Dejan Joveljic has done everything that you've ever wanted him to do and more right now at this point. Let me get to this, and then I want to talk more about Yovelich.
Okay.
Ben asked us whenever we were talking about Ricky Puig dropping back to get the ball, and then that's whenever you're getting pressed by a lot of these teams. St. Louis and Sporting Kansas City both did it. Ben says, could we switch Delgado to come back rather than Puig? See, the interesting thing about Delgado is you absolutely could. But Delgado has been living in this little space that's sort of been in front of Miki Yamane and sort of off the left shoulder and back behind Joseph Paintsil. And because of that, he has like 4 assists and 1 goal. So he's got 5 goal contributions in 5 games. The guy has been playing out of his mind. So that's sort of where his spot has been. And that's one of those things to sort of watch for as it goes.
And by the way, speaking of Yamane, real quick, if you're wondering what the Galaxy would have done if Zavaleta had gone, what the backup plan is, apparently I was told when I was out at training the other day by someone on the staff that Yamane has played some center back, and one of the options was to move Yamane to center back pairing with Yoshida. There's more depth at outside back, and they have several options they could put in there.
They had Cuevas, so they could have. Yeah, that would have been
something they wanted to do.
No, that's not something. Kyle, $10 super chat says, cheers, Kevin, for reporting truth despite power in an age where most media outlets are for sale. Are opinion pieces. It's a big deal to have written that piece. Bravo. See, look, people like you again. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't like any of this. I'm giving up. It makes me feel dirty. Let's talk about Dejan Joveljic and his history. Now, you were telling me, go ahead, tell me what you said at the beginning, so that way I can explain it to everybody, because it is confusing.
I don't remember.
Oh, remember you were saying they said that you were talking about the record that they broke in Major League Soccer.
All kinds of records. It said he tied Brian McBride's record for 5 goals and a goal in each of the first 5 games to start a season.
Correct.
And then it said Zlatan has the Galaxy record for goals in 5 consecutive games to start a season.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. I thought Brian McBride had the league record. Why would Zlatan's record also not be the league record when it's the same record?
Okay. There's
another one.
There's 3 records in it. So the Brian McBride one, you're absolutely correct. So that is the most consecutive games with a goal to start a season for the team's first games, right? So Brian McBride scored in 6, right? Or 5, excuse me, 5. Right. 5. And that means the first 5 games of the season, every game Brian McBride scored. I said that's also a red flag last time, by the way, because I asked Hammer, I go, how many goals do you think Brian McBride had that year whenever he was playing? I think it was with Columbus. How many goals do you think he finished the year with, Kevin? He had 5 through the first 5 games. How many goals did he finish with?
8.
He finished with 10. So like, it's not that like, it wasn't that many more, right? You're like, oh, there was a little bit of a slowdown there. So that could obviously happen. So that's correct. So he tied Brian McBride's record of 5 goals in 5 scoring in consecutive games to start a season. So he has to score a goal in each game. It's not about scoring 5 goals total in the first 5 games. You have to score one in each game in order to make that happen.
You could have a hat trick in every game and you wind up.
It wouldn't matter. You still get 5.
Score a goal in each
in each one. So that's the consecutive one. Now the Zlatan one is, let's see if I can get it correctly. He
started in the 3rd game.
Yeah. Additionally, Yovelich tied Zlatan Ibrahimovic's club record for the most consecutive games played with a goal scored to begin a season. So Zlatan started 3 games in and then scored 5 straight whenever he did that. So that Yovelich technically tied him with that as well. So that's a record. Here's the 3rd record that's also in there, and this is back in the DC United days with Jaime Moreno. With a goal scored next week against the Seattle Sounders, Yovelich would equal Jaime Moreno's MLS record for the most consecutive games played by a player with a goal scored to begin a season. Now, this is most consecutive games played by a player to start a season, not the game. So DC played like 7 games and Moreno only played in 6 of them, but they were consecutive for him, but he may have missed one for like he was off on international duty or something like that, but he scored 6. So that's the next one that Yovelich, by the way, Kevin, if we're thinking about this in a really smart way, you know how like you can unify the titles in boxing? If he just scores the next one, he can unify all these records and they're all the same, you know?
Well, I think it was Casey Stengel who once said there are lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yes.
Meaning you can take a statistic and prove or disprove anything.
Me and Kevin Acevedo was on who works for the LA Galaxy, was on the call afterwards and was trying to explain the difference between these 3 things. We're all like trying to write stuff down. We're like, what are you guys looking at? Yeah, there's a lot of fun with that. So bottom line is Yovelich in MLS record books as we speak, because he's tied for that record. So scoring against Seattle would give it to him basically almost all by himself outside, and would equal Jaime Moreno's if you do that as well. So really fun to sort of watch him play and how it goes. The Galaxy ranks 2nd in the league in goals scored with 12 behind only Miami. Now that does give them the best offense, however, Kevin, because Miami has played an extra game. Miami got shut out and just trounced by Red Bulls 4-0. A messy-less.
In the ring.
Yeah, in the rain. Oh, I watched a lot of that game.
The Galaxy have also given up 9 goals, which I think is the highest in the league.
Yeah, it's one of the higher ones, for sure.
So they do have the 2nd best goal differential. And you know, McCarthy, by the way, we haven't even spoken about John McCarthy. He had 7 saves, 2nd highest in his career. The second best, equals the 2nd best game that he's ever had as far as saves go. You look at the number of goals he's given up, again, 9 in 5 games, and multiple goals in all these games, and you think, wow, he's really not playing that well. I thought he really played well. And you say he gave up 2 goals. He made 7 saves, and he was not getting a lot of help in the first half. I thought McCarthy maybe had one of his better games of the season, which is strange.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the 2 set piece goals, I don't know what he could have done on either of those. Again, and we often say that, but again, it's the Galaxy and set piece goals. I mean, if I'm Greg Vanney, it's all I work on. Like, if you just get rid of those set piece goals, the Galaxy have one of the better defenses in the whole league. The Galaxy, by the way, with 3 second-half goals scored in the win. The Galaxy currently ranked 1st in MLS in second-half goals scored. They've scored 9 of their goals in the second half. Remember what I said about second-half teams and Greg Vanney being a good second-half team guy? That's an important one. So watch that one. We talked about the LA Galaxy not getting a win over Sporting Kansas City in Kansas City since 2019. They beat Kansas City. It's the first time since 2019 in Kansas City. First time ever for Greg Vanney, I think you already mentioned it, beating Peter Vermes. First time Greg Vanney in any capacity has ever beaten Peter Vermes.
Anywhere.
With any team. Toronto, Galaxy, it doesn't matter. Greg Vanney never has beaten Peter Vermes. I don't know if he appreciated us. Alex Ruiz asked him about that. I don't know if he was like, oh yeah, I'm glad it's over. But he was sort of, he asked about, Alex said, you guys get a win in Kansas City and then you beat Peter Vermes. Is it good to sort of get some of these negative records out of there? And Greg Vanney goes, it's good for the mentality of the guys to be like, there is no such thing as a hard place to play, right? Like that type of thing. It's like, oh, well, we went to Sporting Kansas City and we won. So what's the deal? The LA Galaxy, by the way, Kevin, in 2023, how many wins on the road do the LA Galaxy have?
I think they have 4?
2.
Two.
How many
Okay,
wins
they
on the
matched that.
how many wins on the road do they have so
Two.
far? Yeah, 2. If you look at that, the LA Galaxy got a total of 12 points total, I believe, on the road in all of 2022 or 2023, and now they're basically got almost all of those points. Let's see if I can find it.
I bet you have a graphic.
I do have a graphic somewhere. Away points. There it is. The LA Galaxy had 12 total points last year in 2023 on the road. The Galaxy have 7 points so far in 2024. So that's huge in terms of what they're trying to do there. So that's another thing to sort of take a look at. And by the way, last year in 2023, it took them 11 games to get to 9 points. And they have 5. It took them 5 games to get to 11 points in 2024. So they're doing something. The away average here at 2.33 is a ridiculous thing, and pay no attention to it. But we're gonna look at it anyway, just to sort of highlight it. It's really about the home games, and the LA Galaxy have yet to win at home. So Seattle coming in is a big deal. It's going to be one of those things to sort of watch how they do it. And again, I think we talked a little bit about wounded animal and all that fun stuff. But Seattle's a wounded animal. You should be careful with them whenever they come to town, always and forever. I wanted to get to team of the match day. As we said before, the disrespect for Mark Delgado has officially ended. Major League Soccer recognizes him and puts him on the team of the match day. Also on the team of the match day bench John McCarthy on there. Also Ricky Puig on there, which is amazing because Ricky Puig had an atrocious first half. And he was good enough in the second half that he came back. Yes.
Put that graphic up there again. I mean, they just throw people wherever they want, right? Boanga is not a midfielder. I mean,
who cares? But you're absolutely right. They just throw people everywhere. But
yeah, but by the way, speaking of throwing people out there, go back to McCarthy for just a second. I talked to Greg Vanney about him the other day. Mikovic is going to play. Vanney said he is going to get some game time. He's going to get a lot of game time. Vanney doesn't want to do a goalkeeper rotation, but part of the reason between the lines, I'm not reading between the lines now. He didn't say this, but I'm reading between the lines. Part of the reason they wanted McCarthy to come over is he is a really good mentor. He worked a lot with Max Crepeau over at LAFC, and now he's who was the starting goalkeeper before he got hurt. And now he's sort of helping Mikovic kind of find his way through MLS. That apparently is the goalkeeper. He is the goalkeeper of the future. McCarthy's going to play a lot. There's not going to be a rotation, but Mikovic is going to play. So it's not going to be one of those seasons that we're used to with Jonathan Bond, where one goalkeeper plays 32 or 34 games. You may see something by the end of the season where maybe McCarthy's played 22 and Mikovic plays 12. He's going to get a lot of playing time.
Yeah, absolutely could. Eric, by the way, $20 super chat. Thank you for that, Eric. Appreciate it. He goes, are you familiar with all USL teams? Have you heard about the Santa Barbara Sky FC, our first ever pro team? I did not know about that.
I did not.
See,
I wonder what league they're not USL Championship. They must be League One, League Two.
Maybe one or two. I don't know. It'll be one of those. Eric maybe will tell us. Maybe it is a championship team. You never know. They add and subtract those things like crazy, so I never know. $5 super chat from Steven. Seattle Sounders will be a trap game this week. We'll talk about that game on Thursday, Steven, but I don't disagree. This is absolutely setting up for one of those, Seattle's no good, Seattle's bad, that type of thing. Do you want to talk about Dejan Joveljic and his scoring real quick? Okay, good. I have a chart for that. Just so you know, minutes per goal, right? Which is basically how many minutes on average, how many minutes per goal do these players score. Whenever Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored 30 goals in 2019, he averaged 87 minutes per goal. If you look at Dejan Joveljic right now, he's scoring a goal once every 78 minutes. I would just like to point that out. I'm not saying anything. I'm just pointing it out, Kevin. I would never think about pointing something out like that whenever you compare Dejan Joveljic to Zlatan.
Remember, Dejan said 15 goals. That was what he was going to score this year.
We were talking about something like that in the press conference. We were like, I sort of said, this feels like you're hitting all your goals like pretty early, and holding on, that dude was having none of it. By the way, love, if you get a chance, read Charles Boehm's article. Charles is a good friend, and I get to see him whenever I go out to DC, and we get to say hi to each other on Zoom calls on occasion. But Charles wrote an interesting article, was covering this game, and we were talking about Dejan Joveljic, and I was just like, man, just love that guy.
Something else on Yovelich, I forgot to mention this when I was out training last week. I think it was Kleshtin told me that that Dejan stayed here during the off season and worked out, and he came by and I saw him and I talked to him in Coachella, but when he walked by, I just thought, wow, he looks like he's really fit. I mean, he looked thin. He looked.
It's the teeth. It's the teeth. He got those new teeth, and that's clearly where all those where his power is coming from. It's the teeth.
No, he looked really fit, and there was no baby fat, nothing like that. He looked really good, and he apparently stayed here and just worked his butt off. And we talked a little bit what you and I have talked about on the show, where the Galaxy did not go out and sign a striker, which we all thought we were going to do. They apparently left it in his hands. And what I was told from Gordon Clifton was that he took that as a vote of confidence, but also as a challenge. And Vanney had the same conversation with him that apparently he had with us, where he said, look, you're the guy. You're going to go out there, you're going to perform or not. And if you don't, we're going to go get somebody. So it's not like you've got a short leash, but it's put up or shut up time. And it was apparently the perfect message for him, because he stayed here in the offseason, worked his butt off. He looks great. And the fact that he told you that he's not resting on his laurels, that there's always more to accomplish, that's a really good sign for a young player.
Oh, I mean, everything is going right for the LA Galaxy right now. Let's be very clear. Everything is going right outside of even whenever they have horrible performances. I mean, my chart that I love to look at, which is the teams getting points, right? And how big is teams getting points? They're at 100% a point or better right now, because they haven't lost a game. And even whenever they struggle, and by the way, they played horribly. Let's be very clear.
They've come back from 2-goal deficits twice now to tie in Nashville, and they should have won that game. Right.
Yep.
And then they win this game when they played an atrocious first half. I don't think we made a big enough point about that, about the fact they've come back twice when last year they didn't do that. And they had the worst half of the season, and they went in the locker room and said, we're right in this game.
Yeah, here's the problem, though. And let's be very clear that this is a problem. You can't keep doing that. You can't put yourself in positions to lose and keep coming back. The San Jose Earthquakes and the Goonies Never Say Die team is the perfect example of that, which is you can't do that to yourself. You can do it through a lot of the season. You can survive that way. You can win a lot of games. You can get a lot of points. People will be really excited about you. And then you'll get in the playoffs and you will lose. Because you cannot go down in the playoffs. You have to be a team that gets out in front and stays out in front and does the things that you need to do in order to win games. So the Galaxy can't continue this. Now, I'm not saying they can't be successful doing it, because they're doing it right now. I'm saying that if you want to win a trophy, you cannot do this. In the big games, when you're playing the big opponents, you cannot allow them to score first. You can't allow them to score multiple goals. Everybody now knows the LA Galaxy are not dead whenever you score 2 goals on them. So everybody's going to be trying to score that third goal. I think SKC certainly put the brakes on it 2-0, thinking they had everything controlled. But when you look at it down with those 8 minutes, right? All it took the Galaxy was 8 minutes. The Galaxy are 8-minute dangerous. They could score 3 goals in 8 minutes. So if there's 8 minutes on the clock and the Galaxy are down 2-0, you better be worried and concerned that the LA Galaxy can score 3 goals. The other interesting thing I've seen so far with the Galaxy undefeated, and they're also undefeated through their first 5 games, so not a surprise, but undefeated so far when they allow the other team to score first. Away both times, so Nashville and Sporting Kansas City, they allowed the away team to score first. So
the home team, rather.
Yeah, excuse me, the home team to score first. And when they do that, so far they've been able to do it. In fact, they've outscored their opponents 5-4 whenever they've allowed the first goal. They've outscored their opponents 7-5 when they score the first goal, right? So again, better to score the first goal, little easier path for you. The Galaxy now unbeaten in their last 5 games, 2 games away from tying their longest streak in 2023, and 1 game away from tying their longest unbeaten streak in 2022. All right. Already beat the 2021 one, by the way, just in case you're keeping count at home. So that's sort of something to watch there. The other thing is, I'm going to say this, and let's put it in the proper perspective, which is here the LA Galaxy and all their MLS Cup winning years. This LA Galaxy team, in terms of the start, is very much within the Kona champions, as we'll call it, which is the highest points after this time and the lowest points in teams that have won MLS Cups. Very much in that, I sort of see it as a hurricane tracker, Kevin, right? Like the Kona probability. This is the Kona championships right now. The Galaxy very much in that Kona championship. That means relatively little at this early point. I just like to point that out.
You make a good point though about the Galaxy can't afford to go down early like they've been doing, and another part of that is the mentality part. And I'm really big on some of those intangible things. It's great when you fall behind and you say, we've got this, we can come back. But it's bad when you fall behind and you say, no problem, don't worry. There's no sense of urgency. We've done this before, we'll do it again. You're right. You don't always do it every time. And when you get complacent and feel like going down is not a problem, that you're going to come back, you're right. That's a big problem, and they need to have that mentality of starting games on the front foot and not letting the game come to them.
It helps currently with Yovelich on sort of the streak that he has, Kevin. The other part of that is I think that Yovelich currently as a Golden Boot guy is sitting there as well. So we have a bunch of different things that seem to be happening and working well for the LA Galaxy in this. I think it took a Lewis Morgan hat trick against New York Red Bulls to sort of tie him there. So Yovelich currently outplaying Luis Suarez as it was with the goals. You want to see more from him? Again, had a good chance at another goal earlier in that game. In fact, 2 or 3 different chances that were probably could have been one. He whiffed on one that sort of Melia still had to make a good save on that was across the post. And so you just want to see everybody tightening things up. But again, just take the set piece defense out. And I like that there were people arguing with me on Twitter during the game. They're like, I go, when you look at the LA Galaxy and the faults they have, it's not their run of play defense. Run of play defense is, they've given up, I think, 2 goals on penalty kicks maybe so far this year. At least one that I can remember of. Somebody in the chat room will correct me. But you look at that and they've given up basically only 2 or 3 goals from the run of play so far. That's the stuff that really had been the problem for this LA Galaxy team. That's not a problem. So now fix the set piece. And people were like, it's still defense. It still matters. Absolutely. But there's a huge difference between defending on set pieces and defending in the run of play. And the run of play, the LA Galaxy were atrocious in transition. They would get burned over and over and over again. The way they're currently allowing goals is not that way. They're not getting caught in transition. They're not being played off the ball and watching teams score and run through their defense. In fact, when teams try to run through the defense, it doesn't happen. The LA Galaxy have been very good on the defensive side. So clean up the set piece goals so I can stop arguing about what defense is and what it's not.
And you can break that down even more against St. Louis. 2 of the set piece goals were on plays where McCarthy argued that he was interfered with. It didn't go his way, and you if you look at him, you can see the referee's position. Maybe he wasn't interfered with. Maybe it was a good goal, but controversial goals are not clean goals, I guess you might want to call it. One of the goals from the run of play, remember, was the Messi goal in stoppage time after the Galaxy had been unfairly red carded, and it was Messi on top of that. So when you look at it, it's not like they're giving up. They're getting bit and giving up cheap goals.
Well, I mean, the cheap goals have certainly come on set pieces. Let's be clear. That's where the cheap goals,
yeah.
But you're right. I agree with you that they have not. The run of play defense is so important. And if that indeed is quote unquote fixed, and these numbers do not tell you if it is, right? But through 5 games, the LA Galaxy has scored 12 goals. They've allowed 9 goals. Right now, they're projected to score 81.6 goals this season. So almost 82 goals. But also give up.
Be second or third all time in MLS history.
I mean, that seems like a lot, right? So 61.2 is what they're going to give up. That's a lot too. So when we look at those things, again, let's watch and track and see if they can fix some of these things. So absolutely. I love it. Set pieces are a big part of the game, though. Nobody said they weren't. Not one person has argued that set pieces aren't a huge part of the game. They're a huge part of the game. Listen, at the very end, because we were trying to, I think I was getting in arguments with people about, they're like, whoa, how do you look at this stat? Listen, bottom line is, it doesn't matter. There's 2 goals for Sporting Kansas City that they got. There's 3 goals for St. Louis that they got. It doesn't matter how they happen, and I understand that. But there's a big difference between set piece defending and open play defending. And the Galaxy were atrocious at open play defending last year. Very bad. And a lot of that was in transition. We have to look at the markers and say, you've taken a step in the right direction with the open play. Now, what happens against Seattle? Seattle is a very good team that loves to punish the LA Galaxy, especially on the counter. Jordan Morris is probably going to be there and all hyped up because he always gets for the gets up for the LA Galaxy. He's had a lot of success against poor LA Galaxy teams. I don't know that the Galaxy are capable of being trapped yet in a trap game. That's sort of something to look, because I don't know that they think. I think they're currently out there trying to kill everybody. That sort of seems.
And the Roldan brothers coming home to play against their brother's team,
right?
Brothers, one of the athletic trainers for the Galaxy. Another thing that there is a little bit of a rivalry between Seattle and the Galaxy. Going back to the Ziggy Bruce years, there's a little bit of a rivalry. It's still an important game, I think, for both teams. And as you mentioned, Seattle winless to start the season.
Right.
If they had to pick a game where they would turn it around,
it would be this one. Yeah.
It would be absolutely. And I think they're going to be loaded for bear coming in here.
Gary, by the way, $5 super chat, rad chat and rad show. Thank you, gentlemen. Here's hoping for more Dejan golazos. Did I do it okay? I don't know. I never
You
know
did, that
anymore.
was good.
I think they like it better when I don't say it right anyway, so it doesn't really matter anymore.
Ricky Pooge would say goals
That's
because he's speaking English now.
right. Josie, $2 super chat. Will Galaxy be the first MLS Invincibles team? No, they're gonna lose. It's happening. It's coming. It's coming quickly. If your theory of Josh's roulette theory of black and red, you're trying to figure out which one, and you look on the board and it's been all black, and you know red is coming. This is one of those times. You keep winning games, the likelihood of you losing that next game goes up a little bit. In my mind, that's not actually how statistics work, but in my mind, that's how they work. So I'm very much
Well, if you flip a coin 50 times, isn't it supposed to come up heads 25 and tails 25?
It is, absolutely. But I would argue that if you kept having heads, and maybe there's some statistics that actually prove this out, but if you keep having heads, even though every flip is 50%, there has to be a cumulative thing that says, well, like, I'm sure in an alternate reality, you could flip a coin 50 times and it would come up 50 times one way. In Josh's world, that means the next one definitely is going to be tails. Like, if you keep getting heads, I would keep throwing money on tails because the likelihood of it just continuing to do that way with 50-50 every time seems unlikely, right? That's my whole point. I don't know if any of that pans out. My math was not my strong suit, just in case everybody was wondering about that.
I mean, let's bring it back to reality a little bit. This Galaxy team is very good. They're playing for one another. They're playing with a lot of heart. It's a kind of a never say die thing. But they're not they're not. I still don't think they're a Supporters Shield champion. Put it that way. They're not a team that's going to go all season unbeaten. They're going to hit. They're going to stumble somewhere. It's just the team is not a perfect team.
Right.
It's a very good team, and they're playing really well. I don't think they're playing over their heads right now. I don't even think they're playing up to their capabilities. I think they can get better, but they're not a team that's going to run the table, and I don't think they're a Supporters Shield winner.
The numbers like the LA Galaxy right now, right? When we talked about Sporting Kansas City, the numbers did not like Sporting Kansas City. And then Sporting Kansas City came out and dominated for 60 plus minutes. So you sort of that. By the way, Philip, thank you for reminding me. I missed this one completely. $5 super chat from Philip. What would Yovelich have to do goals-wise by the summer transfer window for Kuntz not to sign another striker? I mean, he's playing. I'm not going to say he has to score in every game. He doesn't. He absolutely doesn't. Realistically, from here on out and for the summer, he needs to have another like 7 goals by the summer transfer window. And that's not a lot if you're looking at how he's scoring. And that's going to make a lot of you really upset and really angry because he's been. But I think the chances are going to be there for him to score way more than 5 or 6 goals. We asked Yovelich, I think the LA Galaxy asked Yovelich just to be average. And that's what you're asking. You're setting him up in the perfect position to be, successful, Kevin. So I don't know. I don't think the Galaxy are personally going out to sign a striker. I don't think that they have a striker on their list right now.
And let's go back to this intangible thing, which I think is important. If that sort of winter pep talk to Yovelich is, we're not going to go get somebody. This is yours. If you blow it, we're going to bring somebody in, but here's your chance. If in fact that really was one of the keys to this, and I believe that it was, then you destroy all that by saying, hey, you know what? You did everything that you said you were going to do and that we wanted you to do, that we asked for you to do, but we're signing another striker anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, you destroy all that.
Yep.
So if he continues to play, I don't think he can continue to play at this level. Again, I'll say the same thing about the Galaxy. Now, having said that, I don't think the Galaxy are a Supporters Shield champion. I do think that they could, if they play like this, never say die, they could be an MLS Cup contender. They certainly could make a long playoff run, longer than they've made in the past. But as far as Yovelich goes, he doesn't need to score a goal every game. He needs to score every 2 games. He just needs to continue to play at a high level, and that will open things up for other players. He can be valuable without scoring goals.
If we go along and then look at where all the points are right now, Cincinnati up at top in that Eastern Conference, 11 points. Miami with 10, New York with 10, Columbus with 10, Toronto with 10. So interesting names in that top section there, especially Toronto and New York. I think New York Red Bulls. I think Columbus being there was expected. I think Cincinnati being there was expected. Quite honestly, I think Miami being there is expected. Philadelphia struggling so far is sort of in the middle of the Eastern Conference. Very last in that Eastern Conference is Caleb Porter and the New England Revolution. And with all of the shakeup that happened last year in New England, I can't imagine a lot of people are real excited with how things are currently starting under Caleb Porter.
And I think that just makes Bruce Arena look way better because I know it's a different team, but the team has not played at all well since Bruce Arena was let go. And we don't need to talk about why he was let go, but just the fact that the team is not playing well under the last 2 coaches. And they were a playoff contender under Bruce. So there you go.
Yeah, no, so really interesting on that. Now let's go to the Western Conference, where the LA Galaxy sit in second place in the Western Conference, just 1 point from Minnesota, who's at 10. Now, Minnesota has played one less game, so they are flying high right now. By the way, Minnesota, who didn't really have a head coach for a while there, flying out of the gates with 3 wins and 1 draw. They've had 2 home games and 2 away games, so pretty balanced for them. The LA Galaxy, having played 3 away games so far already, so a little bit of an advantage for the Galaxy if they can start winning at home. Although right now, I think they'd play all their games on the road if they keep playing the way that they are playing right now. Vancouver right behind the LA Galaxy with Portland, Salt Lake, LAFC, Houston, St. Louis, all on 7 points there, so right behind them. And then you go down, and it's 6 for Sporting Kansas City, it's 5 for Colorado, 3 for Dallas, 3 for San Jose, 3 for Austin, and then 2 points, just 2 points in the very basement for the Seattle Sounders. Can't say that I would have put the Seattle Sounders there at the beginning, but I also want to say that they seem to have had a very, very quiet offseason. And so I'm not necessarily surprised whenever you realize that maybe they needed to rotate more things. And then when we talked about, they've had injuries as well. So that's sort of sitting there.
They missed Garth Lang away any?
Yeah, I think that. I think that the injuries have certainly hurt them as well. And so, I mean, those 2 things. Austin, by the way, is another one. I think that still stands right now because they have 0 wins. They are winless. That Austin has only won 1 game since they traded away Diego Fagundes. I'd just like to point that out. So that's their cross to bear on all of that. The LA Galaxy currently in 7th in the Supporters Shield, 1.8 points per game as it stands. You have Cincinnati at 2.2, Minnesota technically at 2.5, so above Cincinnati. Miami in second place in the Supporters Shield at 1.67, which would drop them significantly below a lot of teams, including the LA Galaxy, because they played 1 extra game there. So keep an eye on that as that continues around. The LA Galaxy schedule coming up, 7:30 p.m. kickoff time against Seattle coming up on March 30th, last game of the month. The chance for the LA Galaxy to continue their undefeated start to the season. First chance at a home game win against Seattle. And I think if you're looking at rivalries and everything else, the LA Galaxy probably have a couple wins they'd like to toss on Seattle for all the times that Seattle has been beating them up over recent years. So that's something to watch. As we head into April, that April 6th game again, the Corner of the Galaxy will be at Dignity Health Sports Park, where there will be a watch party, but the LA Galaxy will travel to LAFC on April 6th for that 4:30 p.m. TV start time, and then they'll go away to Vancouver, another good team in the Western Conference right now, and then they will host the San Jose Earthquakes, and then away to Austin. So April has 1, 2, 3 away games and only 1 home game. So April will be a long travel for a lot of Galaxy fans. So hopefully you'll come out and sort of see us.
Are they going to charter to the LAFC game?
Yeah, they charter a bus for sure, 100%. That's what it is. Just looking at the big game that everybody's watching was that New York Red Bulls 4-0 victory over that. I'm trying to see other big games that sort of came over. Orlando beat Austin. That was a big one. Toronto beating Atlanta 2-0 was a big one. The Galaxy coming from behind. DC and St. Louis, that 2-2 game, because DC is one of the hot teams. LAFC 5-0 over Nashville. LAFC's offense wakes up and sort of comes around. Was there, I was going to say something, and I almost don't want to. I heard
they were seconds away from the longest scoreless streak in franchise history.
So
and Wenger wound up with 2 goals in that game.
It's going to be an interesting one to see what happens with if they can sort of take their current positions and translate it into the April 6th game, with the Galaxy being maybe the better team at the time. And,
first time since 2021 that the Galaxy would go into a Traffico leading in the standings. And also John McCarthy's homecoming.
Yeah,
I'm really interested to see what kind of a welcome he gets. And the reason I say that is there's only 2 players that have played on both sides in El Traffico. Both of them started LAFC and came to the Galaxy. That was Raheem Edwards. But John McCarthy's in a different kind of spot. He won the MLS Cup for them. Remember in 2022, he was MVP of the MLS Cup, won the ring for them, then started, I think, 25 games last year, arguably got them back to the MLS Cup. And I think about when Dave Roberts played for the Red Sox and had the stolen base against the Yankees that led to the Red Sox going on to the World Series. They always talked about he'd never have to buy a drink in Boston again. And when he came in with the Dodgers as manager, he got a standing ovation. I wonder if John McCarthy's going to get any kind of a positive ovation from those fans at LAFC. My gut feeling is no.
Right.
But he deserves it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I really like John McCarthy, by the way. Seems like a cool guy. Eric, by the way, $5 super chat. Kevin, Josh, who do you think is the best squad ever? Like in Major League Soccer terms, the best squad ever? The one I witnessed, which I thought was the best squad, was 2011 LA Galaxy, which won that double. Yeah, that was one that I personally witnessed. I know there's some other ones that certainly have been out there. Toronto winning the
trifecta,
the treble in quotation marks, because one of those is the Canadian Cup.
Two other teams.
Yeah, exactly. So the treble, they were a very good team, had a lot of points that year under Greg Vanney. So that's one that certainly gets in there. But the LA Galaxy, as far as I'm concerned, that 2011 team, quite honestly, the 2012 team was really good. The 2014 team was really good as well. I mean, you can go through and sort of look at those teams. The 2014 with the Tiki Taco and everything else that was sort of happening at the time was pretty impressive as well. So those are some.
The LAFC team from the end of second half of 2022 through the start of 2023, they were really playing well when they were making that Champions League run and the start of 2023, but that schedule just ground them down. They did make it to MLS Cup, but they weren't playing well at the end of the season. If they didn't have to play 53 games or whatever it was, they may have set some records and become maybe one of the best teams ever, but the schedule was just too much for them.
Nelson, by the way, $5 super chat. How good are the chances that the LA Galaxy beat LAFC next month? By the way, you better think that LAFC is favored in that game. You go into their stadium at their home, they're going to be favored. And if you don't think that, you haven't watched this rivalry very well. I think the Galaxy, it'll absolutely be a competitive game. But just keep your eye on. Don't expect that it's going to be easy. Don't expect the Galaxy to run over anybody. That's not going to happen in that game, especially. And besides, stop looking ahead. The Galaxy have Seattle coming up on this weekend. That's the most important game.
Right, and that's why it's a trap game. But do you think it helps? I mean, you're going to have some Galaxy players. I think Yoshida's never played in that. Yamani's never played in El Tráfico. Paintsil, Peck, Fagundes, I don't think he's ever played in El Tráfico. Ricky Poo's, obviously, it's an emotional game for him. Right. We saw what he did in the U.S. Open Cup last year, and we've seen the way LAFC treated him, especially in the playoff game. I think it's a game where they're going to have to make sure Ricky doesn't get too geeked up because it's a big game for him. But do you think it helps or hurts those other players that they've never experienced? Now, they've been in big games. I know that. But El Tráfico is a little bit different. The stadiums are smaller.
Yoshida,
fans are closer.
Yoshida, I think, played because he came in last year, right? So did he come in and they played one of those games against LAFC?
He might have played one of them. Yeah. He came in after the Rose Bowl game for sure, and I think the Rose Bowl game was the second one.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think he may have. But I don't know if that helps or hurts. I think that for most of those guys, like if you're talking about Yamane and Yoshida or a lot of or Fagundes, that they've traveled enough to know what that does. And I don't think it's going to be outside the realm of other games that they have played in. It's one of the most intense rivalries in Major League Soccer, but I don't think it's unique within Major League Soccer that there aren't other games and other rivalries that in the moment, like Seattle-Portland, also sort of rival that big of a game, right? So I think there's similars in Major League Soccer and around the world.
And you wouldn't, no goaltender saw all those guys every day in practice.
That's such as, yes, indeed, 2011 team. That was who he thought. So we guessed his correct, right?
Supporters Shield winner, MLS Cup winner. They dominated. The team always at the top of everything.
Yeah, it is. It was a very good year for the LA Galaxy. I think that's it for everything. Oh, we
have some breaking news.
Well, it's not breaking news. Let's not give it indulgence for a second because this means a lot to us, but I don't know that it'll necessarily mean a lot to everybody else, right? Yeah. So the big deal here, obviously, is looking at all that. She's going to be leaving the LA. Rare. It's one of those things, Kevin, where you sit there and you say. You don't see people who you really enjoy working with on a regular basis and who seem to get the idea of what you have something personal to say as well, is that I'm certainly going to miss Vicky whenever she leaves. She's been outstanding. She gave us so much respect at the podcast, and just the ability to collaborate with the LA Galaxy on all this stuff has been huge, and she's a big reason. And I think the LA Galaxy are going to miss her.
I was 17 years old, still in high school when I started at the San Gabriel Valley Tribune. So I've been doing this doing this. Vicky taught me a lot, which you would think, well, you must have, learned a lot in 47 years. Last year with Chris Klein coming back and the team playing poorly and the supporters, boycott, and the Galaxy were on edge. And I wrote a lot of things that I thought were truthful, but they had an edge to it. And Vicky called me, I think, at the behest of the front office, and we had some tough times. But when the front office changed, I think things changed, things relaxed a little bit. And this season, I'd say the second half of last season, but certainly this season, it's been the best relationship I've ever had with a communications person. She's been helpful. She's been honest. We were, I've been able to call her and bounce ideas off her. She would give me honest answers. It's a relationship that I haven't ever had in 47 years. I've never had a relationship like that with a PR person. And when I found out she was leaving, I actually did go to the Galaxy offices, and I went in and I talked to Tom Braun, and I said, you cannot, under any circumstances, let her leave. And we talked about it a little bit. And one of the things that Tom said is that he is committed. He and Will are both committed to having an open, honest, and transparent dialogue with the media, and that whoever tries to replace Vicky, no one can replace Vicky, but whoever tries to replace Vicky will continue in that way. But Vicky and I had to go through a lot to get here, and I really feel like I don't want all that work to be wasted, and I wish that she would change her mind. Maybe we can see her on Saturday, and maybe we can get Tom and Will to help us, and we'll convince her to stay.
Yeah, just maybe like take her car keys. Like, what are we trying to do? I'm in on whatever plan. But no, I mean, the bottom line is that we have working relationships with all these people. And as you rightfully pointed out, I've gone head to head with Vicky on a couple of things before, and I think I've made some missteps along the way. And, like you try not to be petty in any of this stuff, but we're all trying to do our best. And, I'm dedicated to always getting it right. And I know you are too, but sometimes we don't sometimes we think we are right and they think we're wrong. And certainly with the LA Galaxy being since 2017 and having to go through all this, it's been a lot. It's been a lot to be able to have to push back. And we understood the situation that the Galaxy were in a lot of times. And we understand the situation that we're in as well, which is we're trying to give you the honest truth about things, and do that in a respectful and professional way. I know a lot of people are always criticizing us, Kevin, because, we don't call people names and call people out and that type of thing. I think we can tell you the truth without being unprofessional with stuff. And I know that's not the way of, clickbait media and all the other things we're doing. But I'll honestly say, and it hasn't been this way for everybody, and it won't be this way for everybody, right? You will not hear us stop a podcast to talk about somebody like this if some people just go away, Kevin, and you and I never say anything, right?
Look at the access we've gotten recently. And I'm not saying that it's special for us. I mean, it should be that way but we got to do the live show from Coachella. You're going to do the live show ahead of El Traffico. We've got guests to come on the show. And one of the things with Vicky, when we would have some of our knockout dragout fights, and like I said, it would get pretty ugly. Then I'd get a call the next day. Hey, do you want to talk to so-and-so? Or we have an announcement that we're going to make. Never with, I was really pissed off about yesterday, but here's the news. There was none of that. I did call her a couple times and apologize for the way I acted. She never had to, but my point would be that
she's way nicer than you.
Once she hung up the phone, it was over. And then we started the next day, back to square one. And one thing I just wanted to add about what you were talking about that maybe sometimes fans don't understand is you have to be in this job. You have to be honest. And the reason you have to be honest is not just the integrity and character and all those things that come with journalism. But let's just say we had gone through 2017 as fans and say, oh man, this Galaxy team, yeah, I know they're losing, but golly gee, they're really playing well. People know they're not. Okay. Right. We have to be honest, because if we're not, then we get to this year, 2024, the team's unbeaten after 5 games, and we're talking about how good they are.
Yeah. Well,
people wouldn't believe us.
Exactly.
They wouldn't believe us. So you have to be, when the team is bad, you have to say it. And sometimes PR people have a hard time with that. You have to say the team sucks. And then when the team's going well, you say the team's going well. Yeah. And then people believe you.
But bottom line is that we're going to miss Vicky. We appreciate her. And people are asking where she's going. I'm sure she will announce that whenever she feels she is capable of doing so. But wherever she goes, they're getting a great person. So Kevin and I are sad, but we're also really happy for her as well that she gets to go.
Mostly sad.
But we're mostly sad because we're thinking about ourselves more than anything on this. But Vicky, thank you for everything. We really appreciate you, whatever you do, and we're excited to see wherever you go. So that was it. Now, would you like to finish the show with breaking news?
Okay. Oh yeah. Can you do the thing again?
I can do the thing again. Here we go. Breaking news. Breaking.
That is the best thing you've ever done. By the way.
I didn't. I wanted to. Ray, our composer, did the music, and then I just found the graphic for breaking news. That's you can forget that on Canva. By the way,
awesome.
Get good at Canva, boys and girls. You wanna go places in this world. Be a Canva expert. Breaking from at MLSs. So this is Pablo Maurer. Breaking, PSRA membership has voted to ratify a new CBA with Pro, effectively ending the MLS referee lockout. PSRA refs could work games this weekend. And then he has an article on The Athletic for that. So that is your breaking news. The referees have ratified. PSRA has ratified. They have voted in the affirmative. We're back, Kevin. We're back. Now we can start being mad about the permanent referees screwing things up, right?
Look how much clout I have.
You did it all. You did it all.
It just makes me wonder if obviously this agreement didn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
Why would MLS scream and yell and hold their breath until they turn blue if they knew they were just a few days away from getting this thing settled?
Oh, you know why.
Obviously, they somewhat must have had to agree with me when I said you got to get the refs back because they're bringing the refs back.
That's right. They did it. What do you know? But that's where it was. The chat room, by the way, gets the shout out for that. They were on top of it. So that's why I love the chat room. I can do the show and like they're basically like my producer over here telling me what I'm missing. So that way I can do stuff. So I appreciate all of you guys. That's it. Gary, $2 super chat says this show oozes radness. Wow. I thought
good?
We were oozing something. I didn't know it was radness, but
is that what the kids call it now?
I don't know. I think we need antibiotics. But I'm glad we're doing something here. So that's it. Saw there was a little bit of internet problems there. The full stuff will be up on SoundCloud or on the podcast. It didn't go away. So and Kevin didn't go away. This is always fun whenever for some reason we lose. You're perfect. Your video never moves, but the internet drops out on the other side of things. So who knows? Could have been YouTube connection. Could have been all those fun things. So that's where we are at. Anything else? We're good.
I didn't have anything. I got to go cover a basketball game.
That's right. It's in the hoop. It's not a goal. I guess it is a goal.
Yeah, they don't even use their feet.
It's like a field goal. I don't want to get into this.
The net's really small and they don't use their feet. It's hard to understand.
It's a foul if you use your feet. You're not allowed to. How crazy is that? Just nuts. All right.
What a sport.
Let's get on out of here. Too much. All right, if you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on X and Twitter, that's at kbaxter11. Head on over to, of course, latimes.com for all of his basketball, for all of his hockey, for all of his soccer coverage, latimes.com. We always appreciate the Panda being on here. If you're looking for me on Twitter and X, it's at jguesman, JGUESMAN, and at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. We certainly appreciate that. YouTube, all those fun places, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Music Podcasts. That's where you can find it. All right. The LA Galaxy will take on Seattle coming up this weekend. On Thursday, we'll have that show to get you ready. So a lot of stuff to get to still in this week. We're glad you could join us. We hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Monday into your Tuesday, and we'll see you right back here on Thursday. For Kevin, the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh, Hato Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.